Hello, welcome back to my channel, Class Prep. Today we are going to continue on our best practice spotlight. Pro tip of the day, continuing to look at classroom management. In my last video, I talked about rules and procedures. Today we're going to discuss consequences and incentives. Today, I'm going to talk to you about consequences and incentives. In the previous video, I talked about rules and procedures. Simple consequence is a verbal warning. The student is not adhering to your rule and your procedures, then you go ahead and give them a warning, you address the behavior, and you move on. Let's say the behavior continues. You make a phone call home to their parent or guardian to let them know, hey, this is what's happening, and you need some support. It's really important to reach out to the families and parents. They want to know what's going on. You don't want to wait till you're at your wit's end to make that phone call because they're going to say, hey, why didn't you call me beforehand before things got out of control? So it's important. And I know for many teachers, this may be difficult. So if you do have a behavior specialist at your school that can provide you with some support to make these phone calls, it will be helpful. But not everybody has a behavior specialist. Another consequence is a detention. The detention can be done. Some schools have in the morning, they can give the detention. So in the morning, during lunch, after school, it really depends on the hours of your school if you're able to do them in the morning. For me, I used to do them during lunch as well as after school. I always sent home a slip, a detention slip, to let the parents know, and I always made a phone call. So it's important, especially when you're dealing with lunch, because the student needs to go get their lunch first and then come to detention. You don't want them to miss lunch. And after school, especially if transportation is going to be an issue, the parents need to be aware, especially if they have to come and pick up the student or if the student is going to walk. That is going to be key because you don't want anything to happen. You don't want them to go missing. That can be a whole nother issue. So it's important for the parents to be aware of whatever the detention is. Some schools have detention by administration. Again, they would have to give those consequences, but as the classroom teacher, you can give out your own detention. Another consequence would be a referral to administration. There are some behaviors that are just beyond your control and what you can do as a classroom teacher, and you need some additional support. First thing you want to do whenever you give a referral to administration is to call home. Let the parent know what happened. Why did you have to write a referral to administration? Whether it was profanity, using profanity towards you, other students, cursing, and again, using profanity, things like harassment, bullying, fighting. These are non negotiables where you have to reach out to get some additional help. But it's important to let the parent know, hey, this is why I had to write the referral. You don't want the administrator to be the first person who's going to tell the parent, hey, this is what happened. So again, constant communication is key to addressing behaviors in the classroom. So we have consequences, but it's also important to balance that out with incentives because you don't want it to be just punitive. So, what are some incentives? Phone call home. Just like you can make a phone call if they are not behaving, it's also important if they are doing the right thing to do make a phone call. Are you going to be able to call to make a good phone call for all of your students? No, that's not realistic. But again, as many as you're able to make is very important because really the parents, a lot of the phone calls they get from the school is negative, and many of them are holding their breath when the school calls. So it's really good when they get a good phone call. If you don't have the time to make the phone call, email it could be just as effective as well as a note home. I know some teachers also give certificate. There was one of my colleagues that I used to work with. She always gave certificates whenever the students got a high grade on their tests and gave them a treat. And the students were so excited. And these were high school students, juniors and seniors. And the reason why that I know about it is because they would run up to me and say, hey, such and such gave me a certificate because I had them in ninth and 10th grade. So it doesn't matter what the age is, they all want to be acknowledged and celebrated. So I mentioned already treats and snacks. Some teachers have their own class store. Some schools have their own class store. My school that I currently work at, we have a school store where the students can earn bucks, right? So the teachers can give it to them, all of their teachers, for coming to class on time, doing what they're supposed to, being a good citizen, yet not using profanity, completing their work, wearing their ID. So there's lots of different ways they can earn these bucks, and then they redeem them at the school store for things like cookies, treats, other treats that we get from the local public. So again, it's a great way to really acknowledge the students. You need to have a balance with the consequences and incentives. It cannot be just punitive because you want to create a positive culture to support student achievement. So the incentives is a great way of doing that. But you still want to address the behavior that when they're not adhering to the rules, but you also want to address it when they are doing the right thing. So let's continue this conversation in the chat. Please let me know, what are some consequences that you use in your classroom, and what are some incentives that have been helpful?